Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Karen. Karen's journey is one of tears, heartache, pain, and unforeseen occurrences. Suffering through the death of her youngest son due to SIDS, an unfaithful partner, unsettling disputes with her family, job loss, and breast cancer, Karen fell face first into self-development. She quickly learned that her struggles had created a strong resilience inside her that led her to understand her life's mission. She is now the owner of Emergent Soul, a community that encourages people to feed their mind, body, and spirit. With a drive to change the world, Karen is here today to share her story, her strength, and remind us the importance of our struggles. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you. I so appreciate you taking some time out of your day to hang out with me and share a little bit about your journey. So we're both in Florida.
Yes.
We're both enjoying the hot summers down here.
Aren't we blessed?
Yes. Every year it's kind of like, is it going to get hot? And then every year it's like, yes, it's going to get hot. I love it though. I'm originally from Chicago, so I eat it up.
Okay. I say we have 4 seasons here: hot, hotter, hottest, and then blistering hot. So
that's a good one.
That's with a sprinkling of rain here and there.
Yes, I'll have to use that one for sure. So, listen, I kind of want to dive in. I want to dive into your journey, your story, what you're doing now, and all of the changes that you're making to people's lives and your clients and your community and your world and all the goodness. So I kind of want to just start just hearing about, your past, maybe, one of the biggest challenges you've had in your life and how you overcame that and what you learned from it.
Well, that's a great question, Sabrina. And Emergent Soul actually is based on that premise. I'll start there. As far as Emergent Soul is based on the premise that what connects all of us, you, me, the people who are watching this video, those who watch the replay, but what connects all of us is our life-altering experiences, because it's our experiences that actually help not necessarily define who we are, but help us uncover our true, authentic self. And those challenges, even though while we're going through them, we might think that we're the only one going through them. But once you express and share your challenges with someone else, you'll see and hear, you know what, that sounds like my struggle. That sounds like my, what I'm going through. Now, our journey may be a little bit different, but by sharing your story and sharing, being open and transparent with another person, it gives them a spark of hope to say, you know what, they made it, I can make it too. So to answer the question, as far as what is my biggest challenge, I've had several, which I mentioned in my book, but the challenge that I think that has been the most impactful, that even led me to Emergent Soul, was the passing of my son, Kenneth, who passed away as an infant at almost 2 months old, and he passed December 23rd. So the holidays were always difficult for me. And I really didn't understand as far as SIDS or anything like that, being a young mother at the time. But his death was most impactful because my oldest son at the time, Christopher, was 2. After my son passed away, my ex-husband and I separated because 30 days after we buried our son, he actually was in another relationship that I wasn't aware of until then. So we buried my son. I got a divorce. I'm raising a 2-year-old by myself, and my emotions, as you can imagine, were all over the place. And literally, I would cry all of the time. And one day I walked in on Christopher. He was sitting on the floor, and he's always been a gifted child, but he was sitting on the floor talking to himself. And he was like, and I was listening to him, and he was saying, she's always crying. She's always looking at that baby's picture and crying. And Sabrina, that broke my heart even more, because I was like, oh my God, what am I doing to my son?
Oh.
Hindsight 2020, I made the decision, okay, I'm just not going to let him see me cry anymore, which means I held my emotions in, right? And I say hindsight 2020 because if he was smart enough to realize mommy is sad because Kenny is not here anymore, we could have had a discussion for him to understand, to understand his own terms. But that decision that I made to not allow him see myself cry anymore and hold my emotions in is my belief how I got breast cancer at 39, because, through the book, Louise Hay's You Can Heal Yourself, I had cancer on the left breast, and that's linked to unresolved grief. So it's my belief.
Wow.
I learned a lot. So I say that because it was almost like a rippling effect of one thing led to another. But those things, had a greatest impact. So from losing him, from developing breast cancer to at the age of 40, jumping into self-development, it's my belief that he helped me birth Emergent Soul, because it was, emergent is defined as the process of coming into being, and soul gives life to the body. So it was my uncovering is actually how I found or was reclaiming my life and finding myself in my pieces of the puzzle. So if that makes sense.
Wow. Just sitting here listening to you speak, and just imagining the amount of emotion that would be going through someone's body when they lose a child, and then so soon after that realize that their partner is not being faithful. Mm-hmm. And the amount of this sadness. Mm-hmm. I talk to people who hold a lot of hate, and you can almost feel it coming through their words when they're speaking. They're still years, 10, 15, 20 years later, holding on to so much pain and sadness and bitterness. What have you done? I know you mentioned self-development. What have you done in your life to be able to sit here today with me and be able to just speak what happened to you with so much, I don't want to say kindness, but almost compassion?
Well, that's a great question. And I won't sit here and be untruthful and say, oh yeah, 3 months afterwards, I was able to do that. Because that wouldn't be true. Everyone has their own grieving process, and it takes time. So it wasn't until, I would say 45, a few years into my self-development, where I learned a process called the victim process, where I had to actually go through it. Sometimes we have to go through things to experience it, to make it real for us. And actually, it was at a workshop where the instructor said you had to pick somebody who you feel harmed you the most. Okay. So immediately, or who hurt you the most. So immediately, it's like, oh, that's my ex-husband.
Yeah.
The first husband.
Yeah.
Okay, that's him. That was easy. Okay. And then she's like, all right, you have a partner, and you have 2 minutes to share the story of how they hurt you.
Okay.
From your perspective. That was easy. So I went and said, the time I needed him the most, our son passed away. I just went in. It was, you could feel it. It still was raw for me. It still was
Yeah.
very raw,
Yeah.
So after 2 minutes, she's like, okay, stop. Next part of it, I want you to tell the story of what you did to contribute to that. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Okay.
Now you have 2 minutes to tell your partner how you, and this, I'm going to share this with you, but this is actually how I learned how to move past things. But
yeah,
2 minutes to now share how you contributed to that situation. I was stumped. I was like, I have no idea. She said, Karen, what did you do to contribute? I was like, you're crazy. I did nothing. You have to tell. I was like, all right. He told me that if I went shopping, he was going to leave me. He told you that? I said, no, but you told me I have to tell you something. So I'm going to tell you that. So I made it up. I said, yep. He told me if I continued to shop, he was going to leave me. I made literally because I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. This was on him. She's like, okay, fine. She goes, all right, now you have 2 minutes to share how you did the same thing to someone else. Have you ever heard of the ugly cry?
Yeah, all the time.
When I sat there and I had to think about how I did the same thing to somebody else, that was the point where it's not, I believe you don't break down, but you have a breakthrough. Wow. That was my breakthrough. And it was my breakthrough in the sense that the story that I had continuously told myself since even before meeting him and growing up in life is that when I needed somebody the most, they weren't there for me. So I continually believed that story, kept repeating that story, kept reliving that. When I need somebody, they're not going to be there for me. And then the breakthrough was I hadn't been there for myself.
Wow.
I didn't support myself. I would take actions that were not in my best interest, that were harmful to myself. And that was when I had the breakthrough. So it wasn't until that point where I could see past, it wasn't about him, but looking at myself to say, okay, Karen, you are responsible for your own happiness, not somebody else. Yeah. You are responsible for the actions that you take. It's time for you to put on your big girl panties.
Yeah.
Be responsible. So that's when I learned forgiveness. And it wasn't for him. I had to forgive so I could forgive myself in order to move forward.
Yes. You know what I love about this story is when a person, many times, at least for myself, not trying to project onto you or anyone else, start falling into self-development, it's sometimes difficult because you're having to like look in the mirror a lot. And it's kind of like, there's nothing wrong with me. Everything is wrong with everybody else. The thing that I love about this story is even though you were kind of stuck at that second thing and you're kind of like, really? You stayed and you like continued the process to be able to get through the breakthrough. And I think that's really the important part is sometimes people start to kind of open that box and start to see things a little bit differently. And then something kind of hits them that they don't really appreciate hearing. And then they close it.
Right.
And then they never get to the healing that they need.
Mm-hmm. So you have to be ready and you have to walk through. And that's why I say life is it's the journey. It's not the destination, but it's the journey that we learn the most from. And that's the most impactful for us.
Definitely.